I'm up here on top of this concrete pump truck. We've got a 15-inch hole here that we've got to resolve some issues with. You can see the bearing spun in here. It's got a groove cut along where the grease ring is on that bushing. But from the factory, you can see right here where the bushing actually takes the grease and where the grease is actually coming out. It never greased right in 6 years. When we took this thing apart this morning, I lifted this boom off of here. The grease never made it from the outside of the bushing to the inside of the bushing. Therefore, this bushing started to spin in this hole when it sees to this large pin that goes in here. There's another bearing that goes in the bottom, or bushing that goes in the bottom. I've removed that. That hole's fine. So I'm gonna set up here XY center. I've got 3 of these that I'll install, and then that plate there, I'll XY center this thing on this hole. I'm gonna clean it up a little by hand. I don't want to do a lot of pre-cutting because I don't want to run a lot of weld passes in here. But get this set up and I'll show you some of that. Alright, so what I've got is my XY. I call this bar adjustment, but XY because with these threaded rods I can move the position of this bar on this top hole. In the bottom, I've got my bearing just resting on the lip where the bottom bearing seats. I've got a tapered cone, if you will. It's not really a cone, it's just a piece of plate that I machined to fit the bar. And then I machined the outside. It tapers from 11 to 11 1/4, and it'll hit that flange down there that these bolts are resting on, or where that bearing, the bottom where the bearing seats, and that taper will center it, and it fits tight to my bar. So that's going to be my center on my bottom. Wherever that lands is going to be where it stays, and then I'll adjust this top of my bar with a tool in the holder or my measuring device off of this hole to find center. So now we've got to install the bar. Got some help here. Can't do this part by myself. He's going to put that tapered or cone up from the bottom and tighten it with a centering cone against my bar. And I'll use my slack adjuster collar here, and I'll draw this bar up tight, find center, and then I'll slide my bearing onto the bar and weld it off. I got this thing set up here. About to call it for today. Basically tomorrow I just show up. I'm gonna pre-cut this thing from about 1/3 of the way down all the way to this land before I weld, because I want to stay out of that fusion zone when I cut my finished cut on this. It's so far out up here at the top that I'm not concerned about it. But I tried cleaning it up by hand like I thought I would do, but you can see there's pitting and other things, and I can't weld over that. It just, you're not going to get the finish out of it. It's going to have a bunch of little deposits in it. So I'll just cut this thing a little bit before I weld it up. We'll go from there. So I'm back here the next day. Got this machine set up, everything's ready to go. Do a pre-cut. Got my tool in the holder. This particular system, they rate at 12 inches, but this is 15-inch hole. The only issue I'm gonna run into is over here where I set my weld diameter. This box isn't gonna go that high, but I have a 60mm version of the same machine. Only reason I haven't already switched them out is because I've already set this thing up from a pre-cut. But when I pull this bar to get in here and do the welding, I'm gonna switch out with the 60mm controller and drive. I'll still run this 50mm bar, but that will give me the weld settings that I need to weld this big of a hole. So I'll get this thing cut in here, show you some of that. So now that we've got the pre-cut done and out of the way, I've got this machine swapped over. Got my welder set up and I'm gonna start auto welding this thing. I've got a lot of starts and stops. There's grease holes, there's set screw holes. Shouldn't be too bad though. I'm gonna go ahead and fire this thing up. Got me set over there at 360 millimeters. I tend to set that a little under the size of the hole just because I don't like it to pour that much material in there. It just takes more machine work to get it out. I don't really need it. So get this thing fired up and see how it's doing. So I got this thing set up and welding here. Made a couple passes around. Took a little bit to get it dialed in. It was overlapping a couple welds, and then I had it spaced too far setting my hole diameter. But I've got it dialed in now where I like it. It's doing pretty good. I just keep an eye on it. So I got this thing all welded up. You can see where I skipped the grease holes and also where these set screws hold the bearing in place. Here's a grease hole, set screw, and this thing's all welded. Get the bar back in here. Try to get this thing cut today. Get it all cleaned up. It took a little pressure to get it in there. Looking at that piece of 1-inch plate. But she's home.